Good morning, all of you.
Good morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning, ma'am.
Good morning. Okay, so today, in continuation with the same chapter, the national movement, we will do the Quit India movement. We'll start with that. But before that, if you just see on the earlier page, we have two boxes there, one on revolutionary movement and second on women in the freedom struggle. Are you able to see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
so let's first go through
Yes,
it.
ma'am.
Now, the British government, Simon Commission, we did just in brief. Now, the British government, they created a commission under Sir John Simon, and that is why it was called as the Simon Commission. And now, this was to report on the political situation in India and to suggest some reforms in the constitution here. And now, because it was to suggest some reforms in the Indian constitution system, and it was to make or present a report on the political situation in India. But the problem was that it did not include even a single Indian, and it was to suggest some reforms, political reforms in India, but it did not have any Indian members, and so the people, they did not like it. And when the Simon Commission, it arrived in India uh, on in visited Lahore on October 30th, 1928. It was met with protests, and which were led by Lala Lajpat Rai, and so it was led by protests, and all the parties, they boycotted this Simon Commission. Now, Lala Lajpat Rai, he led these protests, and during that protest march, Lala Lajpat Rai, he was beaten with lathis on the chest, and because of the injuries that he received, he later on succumbed, or he later on died because of those injuries. And so Bhagat Singh, he was an eyewitness. He saw this whole thing happen in front of him, and he took a pledge to take revenge. And he joined with other revolutionaries, and they plotted to kill the police chief who has given the orders for lathi charge. But however, what happened, it was a case of mistaken identity, means they took someone else for someone else, and in the process, Saunders, he was shot. And Bhagat Singh, he was involved in other many other revolutionary organizations also, and he rose to the ranks of the Hindustan Republican Association, and he converted it to the Hindustan Socialist Republican Association, HRA to HSRA. And now, in all these things, when all these things were going on, the British government, they enacted the Defence of India Act. And now this act was to give more powers to the Britishers, or to the police. And now, in response to this act, now this act was to give more powers to the police to arrest the political prisoners and to imprison them, arrest them. And so the HSRA, they plan to explode a bomb in the assembly. And so on 8th April 1929, Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt, they threw a bomb into the corridors of the assembly and shouted Inkilab Zindabad. And this they followed this after uh, by a shower of leaflets, means they threw leaflets uh, in the corridor of the or where assembly took place. And they stated that it takes a loud voice to make the deaf hear. And they said that they have exploded the bombs so that the deaf Britishers could listen to their demands. And Bhagat Singh, he was later on tried because of this, and he was executed, or he was killed at the young age of 23 on March 23rd, 1931, along with his fellow comrades, means his fellow workers, Rajguru and Sukhdev. Then women in the freedom struggle. Here we have a little bit about Sarojini Naidu. Now, Sarojini Naidu, she joined the National Independence Movement after the partition of Bengal in 1905, and during 1903 to 1917, Sarojini Naidu, he came in contact with Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Rabindranath Tagore, Gandhi ji, and Jawaharlal Nehru. And after meeting Nehru ji, she got so involved into the freedom struggle that she took a leap into it, and in 1925 she was also elected as the president of the Congress. Then in 1931 she participated in the Roundtable Conference along with Mahatma Gandhi and Pandit Malviya. So she attended the second Roundtable Conference, and on October 2nd, 1942, she was arrested during the Quit India protest, and she stayed in jail for 21 months with Gandhiji. Then on 15th August 1947, when India became independent, Sarojini Naidu, she became the governor of the United Provinces. So the province of Awadh and Agra, together it was called as the United Province, and later on you know that itself got the name of Uttar Pradesh. So she became the governor of the United Province after India's independence, and she was India's first woman governor. She died on March 2nd, 1949, after a heart attack. Okay, so now we'll continue with the Quit India movement. We have already done the Khilafat and the non-cooperation movement, the civil disobedience movement, and now the third mass movement we'll carry on, and that was the Quit India movement. Means this was telling the Britishers that you leave India now. All right. Okay. Now the Quit India movement was the final call, and that was for immediate independence from the British rule. It was started by Gandhiji on August 8th, 1942, and now this movement, it became famous because of Gandhiji's slogan "Do or Die." Means it was "Karo ya Maro." So he gave this slogan, and this made this Quit India movement very famous, and that was one of the thing, obviously. Now addressing the Congress delegates on the night of August 8th, Mahatma Gandhi, he said that I want freedom immediately. He said that I want freedom immediately, even if it could have today. Means if uh, independence could we could have independence today, and even this very night, even before the next morning sun it comes up, I want independence if it could be have it if it could be had. And but he said that so we shall either free India or die in the attempt. Means uh, we we will do everything possible to get independence for India, and while doing that, we may get India independent, or we may also die in the process, but we shall not live to see the perpetuation of a slavery. But what he meant perpetuation here means continuation. But he said, but we will not live to see the continuation of our slavery. So we will fight. We could either die or we would get independence. But before the Congress they could start this movement, Gandhiji, the Britishers, they came down heavily and clamped down on the nationalists. So Gandhiji and all the important Congress leaders, they were arrested, and Congress was declared illegal. And as the news of these arrests it spread, so a protest movement it was started by the people, and people now were so angry, so they were ready to give vent to their pent up anger. And all over the country there were hartals, there were strikes in factories and schools and colleges, and there were demonstrations everywhere, and in many places people also took to violence. So as a result they attacked the police stations, post office, they burnt government buildings, they cut telephone and telegraph wires and railway lines. And so you know, though the Congress leaders, all the important Congress leaders, they were imprisoned, but the people now were unstoppable, and they were ready to do everything to get independence because of the slogan that Gandhiji gave of do or die. So people were ready to do everything or die in the process. And so the students, the workers, and the peasants, they were the backbone of this revolt, while the upper classes, they still remained loyal to the British government. So it was the the students, the workers, and the peasants who formed the backbone of this Quit India movement. And the government, the British government, on their part, they also went all out to crush this movement. And the repression was so much that it knew no bounds. Means the repression had no limits, and the press, it was completely muzzled. Means it was completely suppressed. And then the demonstrating crowds, the people who were demonstrating, they were machine gunned. And though the people were demonstrating in a peaceful manner, non-violent manner, still they were machine gunned, and they were even bombed from the air just for protesting. And prisoners, they were tortured. The police and the military, they reigned supreme, they dominated everything. And over 10,000 people, they died in police and military firing. So many people died just in the protest. And the importance of this Quit India movement, now it's so though we could not get independence at that time, but the importance of the Quit India movement, it laid in the fact that it showed the depth of the feeling, the nationalist feeling, which has reached in the country. Means the depth to which this feeling has gone down deep in the people, that though at this time there was no national leader to lead them, but still the people went all out to fight against the Britishers. And it was evident now, it was clear now, that the Britishers would no longer find it easy or find it possible to rule India against the wishes of the people. All right, so now the Muslim League. Now in 1940, the Muslim League, they passed or they moved a resolution, and they demanded the independent states for Muslims in the eastern and northwestern parts of India. Now these were the states where the Muslims were in majority. And now this resolution, though they were asking for independent states, the resolution did not mention anywhere partition or Pakistan. But why, the question is that why the league asked for independent states or independent arrangement. Now the now from the late reason was that from the late 1930s, the league, they started to view India as a separate nation from the Hindus. They viewed the Muslims as a separate nation from the Hindus. So even the Britishers said that in India there were two separate nations. So they also considered Hindus and Muslims as two separate nations. And so from the late 1930s, the the Muslim League, they also started to view Muslims as a separate nation from the Hindus. And now the provincial elections of 1937, they proved to be vital in this. And they convinced these provincial elections, they convinced the Muslim League that Muslims were just a minority in the country. Because if you remember, out of the 11 provinces, the Congress, they made governments in 7 uh, on their own, and in 2 more they formed government, they formed coalition governments there. And so the league, now they were convinced that Muslims were a minority, and they would always be a second fiddle. Means they will not be the most important player in the political game here in India. And in any democratic structure, they will only come at the second place. And they also feared that maybe it could also happen that the Muslims may go underrepresented, that in the legislative assemblies and the councils, maybe the Muslims will not find any representative. They also fear that, and that is why they ask for independent states for the Muslims. Now let's have a look at some of the popular leaders or the important leaders of the Indian national movement. Abul Kalam Azad, he was a Muslim scholar and a senior political leader of the Indian independence movement, and he was one of the most prominent, popular Muslim leaders. And he was one of those who supported the Hindu Muslim unity. So he was there for Hindu Muslim unity. And he also opposed the partition of India on religious lines, communal lines, means on religious lines. And he is remembered as Maulana Azad. And Azad, he adopted as his pen name, the name with which he wrote. Azad, he became the leader of the Khilafat movement, and during this Khilafat movement, he came in close contact with Mahatma Gandhi, and during this time, the time which he spent with Gandhi ji, he became a supporter of Gandhi ji's ideas of non-violent civil disobedience, and he also worked very actively to organize the non-cooperation movement, and he committed himself totally to Gandhiji's ideals, and he even promoted Swadeshi products and the cause of Swaraj for India. So he was all for Swadeshi and Swaraj, and he served as the president also of the Indian National Congress for several years. Then the second important leader we have is Chandravarti Rajagopalachari, and he was famously known as Rajaji, and he was an Indian lawyer, and he was the second Governor General of independent India. Then in the year 1919, Rajaji he chose to follow Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi, in 1915 he has just returned from South Africa. Then in the year 1921, Rajaji he was selected as the General Secretary of the Congress Party, and he came into close contact with Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, Maulana Azad, Rajendra Prasad, etc., etc., and he began to gain stature. He began to gain in more influence in the party, and he became a prominent leader during the Salt Satyagraha, or during the Dandi March in South India. At one time, he was considered to be Mahatma Gandhi's heir. It was considered that he will succeed Mahatma Gandhi politically, and he served as a member of interim government. Now, interim government is a temporary, for the time being, government before a proper government could be formed. So he was a part of the interim government. When the cabinet mission, they said that now India would be declared as independent, and so for that time, during that time, we had the interim government, and Jawaharlal Nehru he led that interim government, and he was also a part of that interim government in 1946, and then he later on joined Jawaharlal Nehru's cabinet. So he was also a cabinet minister, and he was the chief minister of Madras from 1952 to 1954. Okay, next we have Vallabhbhai Patel. He was a political and a social leader. So he was not only a political but also a social leader, and he played a major role in fighting for country's independence, and he guided its integration into a united independent nation. Now, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel is said to be one of the key persons who led to the unification of these princely states into India. When India became independent and it was divided into India and Pakistan, the princely states were left independent, and they were given a choice that they could join either India or Pakistan as they wished. And Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel he was one of the key persons who led to the integration of many of these princely states into India. Now, he was raised in the countryside, means in the villages of Gujarat, and he was a successful lawyer. And when he was first inspired by the work in philosophy, so he was practicing as a successful lawyer when he came in contact with Gandhiji's philosophy and work. And later on, he organized the peasants of Kheda, Borsad, and Bardoli in Gujarat in non-violent civil disobedience, non-violent deliberate defying of laws against the oppressive British policies which were imposed by the British rule. And he became one of the most influential leaders in Gujarat, and he rose to the leadership of the Indian National Congress, and he was in the forefront, means one of those leaders who were there in the front leading the people in the national struggle. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he was the leader of the All India Muslim League, and he founded Pakistan, and he was the first Governor General of Pakistan. He is officially known in Pakistan as Quaid-e-Azam, or the Great Leader. Jinnah he rose to importance in the Indian National Congress, and in his early days he also talked about Hindu-Muslim unity, and he also helped to shape the 1916 Lucknow Pact with the Muslim League. So he had been a part of the Indian National Congress, and he was once for so he rose to prominence in the Indian National Congress. He got independence, he got prominence there, importance there, and he also helped in the 1916 pact, or the Lucknow Pact of Congress and the Muslim League. Now, the failure of the Congress and League, when the cabinet mission came to India, and it talked about the independence of the country, but the Congress and the League, they have so many differences that they could not come together to form a coalition government to lead independent India, and so the British, they agreed to partition India into India and Pakistan. And as the Governor General of Pakistan, Jinnah, he also had to rehabilitate so many millions of refugees, and he tried to frame national policies on foreign affairs, security, and economic development. Because when after the partition, so many people crossed the sides and moved from one side of the border to another, and so these refugees, they had to be given places to stay, education had to be provided to their children, they had to be given livelihoods to work. So all this there Jinnah had to see. Likewise, in India, Jawaharlal Nehru had to look to all these, and so he was the one. He in Pakistan was a new country born out of India, and so he was the one who framed the foreign policies and national policies on foreign affairs, on security, and the economic development of Pakistan. Next, we have Jawaharlal Nehru, and he was a major political leader of the Indian National Congress, a pivotal figure, a central figure. A pivot is where the whole things move. So he was a central focal point in the Indian national movement, and he was the first and the longest serving Prime Minister of independent India. And then he became the president under the mentorship. So he learned under the leadership of Gandhiji and Jawaharlal Nehru. He was a charismatic, means there was so much charisma when he talked. He was a good orator. People liked to listen to him, liked to believe what he said, and he was a radical leader. He was all for change, and he advocated complete independence, and he stood for complete independence from the British Empire. And if you remember, when he became the president of the Indian National Congress, so that year only, at the Lahore session of the Congress passed a resolution for Purna Swaraj, or complete independence from the British rule. Now, it was Nehruji who raised the flag of independent India in New Delhi on 15th August 1947 and served as the first Prime Minister. And his long tenure, means the long term that he has spent as the Prime Minister, it was instrumental. It helped in shaping the traditions and structures of the modern India. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, he was a Pashtun, or a Pathan, and he was a political and a spiritual leader, and he was also known for his non-violent opposition to the British rule. And he was a follower of Gandhiji, and he was also all for non-violence and all that, and that is why he was also known as Bacha Khan, or Sarhadi Gandhi, or Frontier Gandhi. Now, in time, Ghaffar Khan goal, it came to be the formation. So in time, he came to stand for united, independent, and secular India. And to get his aim, or achieve his aim, he founded the Khudai Khidmatgar, servants of God, and they were all, commonly known as the red shirts, or Lal Kurti, during the 1920s. And Ghaffar Khan, he had a close and a spiritual relationship with Mahatma Gandhi, and he strongly criticized the partition of India. So, now just a little bit is left, so I think I'll complete that also. Now, towards independence and partition. Now, the Congress failure, the Congress was not able to mobilize the Muslim masses, means it failed to bring together the Muslim masses in the 1930s together with the Congress, and it allowed the League to widen its support base. So the Congress, they failed to mobilize the Muslim masses, whereas the League, it was able to. And so because they did not mobilize, so the League got an opportunity, the Muslim League got an opportunity to widen their support. And in the early 1940s, Quit India movement and all that, and we saw that most of the Congress leaders, they were in prison. And so in the early 1940s, the Muslim League, they sought to enlarge its support. And when most of the Congress leaders, they were in prison, and when in 1945 the Second World War ended, and the British, they started to negotiate with the Congress and the Muslim League for independent India, for the independence of India. The talks failed, and in 1946 again elections to the provinces were again held, and the Congress, they fared well in general constituency, means where anyone could vote for anyone, but the League was quite successful in the seats which were reserved for Muslims. And so the Muslim League, they persisted with its demand for a separate Pakistan, and in 1946 the British government, they sent a three member cabinet mission in India. And this mission, the cabinet mission, it discussed with the Indian leaders the terms that how they would transfer the power to India. But the cabinet mission could not uh, it was not able to make the Congress and the Muslim League agree to many of the details of the proposal. And so now it seemed that partition was uh, inevitable, means now nothing could be done except the partition of India. And after the failure of the cabinet mission, the League, they continued with their demand for a separate Pakistan. And the League announced 16th August 1946 as a direct action day. And on this day riots broke out in Calcutta, and it resulted in the death of thousands of people. And this violence from Calcutta, it spread to different parts of the country, and by March 1947 violence has spread to different parts. So violence based on religion, it spread to different parts of northern India. And as a result of uh, these riots, which were based on religion, communal hatred, and because of partition, thousands, they were killed and maimed. They lost their hands or their legs for life, and many were orphaned. Their parents were dead. Many, they died of disease and starvation. Many could not get anything to eat, so they died. Millions, they became refugees from that side and from this side also. And the insanity, means there was complete madness, and the trauma that people had to bear, it is undescribable. You cannot describe. The people that you have been living with your entire life as brothers and sisters now became your enemy. And so lifelong enemy friends now turn into bitter enemies. And partition, because that we had split families. Many were able to reach the other side. Some members of their family were able to reach the other side, some stayed back. So it led to split families and confused identities, torn loyalties. Means once you were a part of one country, you had been loyal to that country, you have fought for independence for that country, and now you belong to a certain other country, and one part of you had been broken, and now it is a separate path. So it was utter chaos and trauma for the people. And it also meant that now India also changed, and now many, as a result, many of its cities changed, and a new country, Pakistan, it was born. And so the joy of independence from the British rule, it was mixed. It came along with the pain of a birth of a new country, Pakistan. So I'll stop here, though a little bit is still left, but that we'll continue in the next period. So, understood? Any questions, students? Or is it clear
No,
to all
ma'am.
of you?
No
No,
problem.
ma'am.
All
Yes, ma'am, it is
Yes,
clear.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
okay. So, that would be
Yes,
all
ma'am.
for today.